On your mark. Get set, go.
I got love for my brothers. I got love for my brothers.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? You know who it is, you know what it is. It's your long lost, newly found brother Jamie. This is a show you can expect uploads every Tuesday. We will be bringing on guests, but this, for our first few episodes of season 1, it's all about setting the foundations. Where are we going? What's the story? And today, I want to jump into a story that builds, it's a brick in the foundation that I think is, without sounding too ambitious, a building block for the next stage of human evolution. And I understand that may sound a bit grandiose, but just follow me here as I set the stage. As I told you a little bit about in last episode, by the way, this is episode 5. Woo! We're moving. My church is shut down. My church being held in a public bus terminal. By the way, just a reminder of what this space is that you just tuned into. The Your Brother Jamie community. Not just a show, but a community, is a space built with the intention and the aim to give people, you, my brother, my sister, a space for you to take your power. What do I mean by take your power? I mean, this is a show, this is a community that refuses to bow to any narrative that leaves people at the mercy of anything external. That this is a community, this is a people, this is a brotherhood. This is a family. This is a community that sees the world as heaven on earth. And while there are so many gross atrocities and violence and conflict that we're able to perceive in the world, that these are opportunities. And I don't say this in any way to invalidate the pain of them, but to honor the pain of these hardships and conflicts. We see them as a glorious opportunity to create something harmonious. There's the foundation of this show. The foundation of what we're building here is based on a verse in Romans chapter 5, where it says, where sin increased, grace superabounds. In other words, if you want evidence for where your greatest opportunities lie, it's in the greatest brokenness existing in your life. It's in the wreckage. It's in the ashes. It's in the problems. Problems are opportunities. It can sound corny. It can sound very corporate America-y. That, we only hire people who are solution-based, not problem-based. But there's something to that. That the difference many times between a problem and a solution is purely based on perspective. That while some people, and this goes back to the old nature versus nurture argument that you see in family therapy so often, right? Is that you'll have two children who will experience the same environment yet come out with two interpretations. And two interpretations create two different experiences. Because remember, we covered in week 2, your interpretation is your experience. Interpretation is not just changing your state of mind. Changing your state of mind is also changing your state of being. And changing your state of being is changing your state of experience. So when we talk about circumstances as if they're separate from us, can you tell I've had I've only had 2 shots of espresso, ladies and gentlemen, but we are going so, we're moving here. That our awareness is our experience. Just because something happens outside of my field of awareness does not mean that it's outside of my experience, because there is an awareness within us that is aware of everything. This is why you'll find in scripture, and I know I'm always hitting scripture, but I think I've found myself, I don't want to say feeling protective, but in a culture, especially in Los Angeles, where Eastern thought is so celebrated, I get a little bit protective, because so much of what we're just distinguishing as Eastern thought also holds very deep biblical thought. And it's kind of crazy that biblical thought would be considered Western thought, because biblical thought is coming in many ways from the antithesis of what at least modern Western thought is coming from. Sometimes when we say that America's built on Judeo-Christian values, I understand the meaning, principally what we're saying, but Judaism's main contribution to world religions is not monotheism as much as it is the very first commandment given in Jewish law, which is you shall not create any idol. You shall make no idol. You shall not make a form of God. In other words, the chief contribution, and I forget the name of the rabbi who was just speaking this to me, and please drop this in the chat, drop this in the comments if you know the rabbi that I'm referencing, that the chief contribution of Judaism is a formless God. And sometimes, I think partly because it's trendy to hate Christianity in a way, in the West, at least at this point in our culture, in subsects of our culture, we'll just attribute that to Buddhism. We'll just attribute that to Eastern thought. But a formless God, in other words, as soon as you label God and say, oh, God is that, you've missed it. You've created an idol. You see this in the New Testament as well, in several different stories. So when I'm hitting this, when you hear me hit the Bible so often, understand I was a pastor. I'm a student of the Bible. And a large part of what I want to do through this, I'm not even trying to prove anything about the Bible. I'm not trying to prove anything about Christianity, because as I've told you, I don't even necessarily know if everything that calls itself Christian truly follows the teachings of Jesus. I don't necessarily think that's the case. And we all know what it's like in our culture to be in a war over words. Just because you say you're something doesn't mean you embody that thing. So that's part of the reason why I'm always coming from the biblical end. At some point, and I've talked about how I see Jesus in previous episodes. That's not necessarily the point of what I'm hitting now. So I want to stay on this. But the point of what I'm saying, the point of what I'm hitting here is, where sin increased, grace super abounds. So it is in our greatest conflict, it is in our greatest shame, it is in our greatest darkness that we find the greatest light. So if you're looking for the greatest light, search in your greatest darkness. This is a show, this is a community of people who looks darkness straight at the face. We're not going to cop out of it. We're not going to deny it. We're not going to run from it. We're not going to avoid it. We're going to look at it. What do you find when you look at your darkness? You find ultimate, shining, beaming, glorious light. Which is why I've said it once, I've said it twice, so I'll probably say it 1,000 more times. There are no monsters. There are no monsters. It's just us. Which, when we come to that recognition, is a launch pad for power, because a recognition of our capacity and choice, recognition of our choice to do good and to do evil, our capacity to do good and to do evil, we then are armed with the power to choose to create, what will we build in this life then? Will we destroy or will we build up? Will we give life or will we take it? So when I say this is a community built to give people power, I mean it is a community built to provide you a clear option and guidance on how to take ownership of your life. And sometimes we see that word and it's a little bit like, is this a pick yourself up by the bootstraps thing? No. As a matter of fact, it's a flip on that, because what it's saying is you have a choice of whether or not you see bootstraps to pick yourself up by or not. That's a narrative given by oppressors to leave Black America feeling powerless. And this also is something I'm very, very passionate on this show. Because of my own relational context, my background, I refuse to participate in another white voice that perpetuates a narrative of Black America being powerless. I refuse. No way. Because I believe in Black power. Because I've seen Black power. And Black power, in many ways, absolutely, it finds its power in its suffering. But if you major too much on its suffering and you don't find the power, I don't think that you've spent enough time around Black America. If you've spent time relationally engaging with Black America. And I understand the risk. But I mean it to the deepest part of my soul. I risk majoring too much on Black power that perhaps in moments sounds like I'm missing the suffering. I've done that before. I've done that in my sermons. I remember I would have congregants, some of my Black congregants who would come up to me and they'd say, we hear what you're saying on Black power, but you're missing the suffering. And I don't want to miss the suffering. But part of that conversation is I would say, I sincerely apologize. But sometimes it's possible to become blinded to your suffering because I'm so aware of the power you have. We're going to get very deep into these conversations, just so you know, ladies and gentlemen, who racial conciliation is something that I personally am, in many ways, most passionate about. Passionate about sounds corny. That's not even it. I'm convicted on. Ever since, for a long time. I mean, let's just open the can of worms here that basketball in many ways is such a glorious game because there's a unified narrative that includes more diversity than any other sport I know of. All it takes is a ball and a basket. Anyone can play. But within that context, basketball was birthed in Black America. So the honor and the privilege that I had in giving me proximity through the game of basketball. Basketball, we'll find that incorporated a lot through just this show. I see events, like some of our future events that we'll do through this podcast will definitely be hooping. Basketball will always be a part of this. There's so many different ways I could go from that, but I use all of this as a long introduction and preface to say that I understand the risk when a young white man stands up and says, hey, this is a place for people to take your power. I understand the risk of sounding like I'm just another white man telling everybody to pick yourself up by your bootstraps when I'm a white dude over here sitting on a pad of privilege that he's not even aware of. That's not where I'm shooting from. I'm shooting from an angle of, from the awareness and the context that I come from, I'm aiming to build a space that does not perpetuate just another narrative that keeps the Black American at the mercy of an external system. What I'm trying to do is build a space for us to change our minds, and not just change our minds, but take an ownership that allows us to create. I do see a future for Black America, and I see it for our children, our children's children. In this nation where we the people does mean all the people. It doesn't just mean white landowning males. It doesn't just mean it's a foundation that includes we the people, meaning all the people. And I do see that future for Black America. I mean, it's already shifted. It's already shifted. It's not even the future, it's the present. Power has shifted. We're already in a process of change that is being enacted where in the next 3 generations, the power will fully have shifted entirely. And it will be said that those that were once counted last are now first, and those who were once counted first are now last. There was always a balance. There has always been a balance, and there always will be a balance. Slaves become the masters. But the kind of power I'm talking about doesn't require you to take anything from someone else. The kind of power I'm talking about is a self-sufficiency that allows us to live in our heavens without creating a hell in yours, without casting you down from your heaven. I can live in my own, and you can live in yours. We can all live in ours together, so much to the point where we live in abundance that allows us to completely subvert our economy, be in an economy that is more based in giving than it is based on taking. So all of this being said, what is this space? It is a place for you to take ownership. And we're talking about how to take that ownership. We're painting the picture of what that is. We're naming the process. We're clarifying the process of ownership without oversimplifying. And we talked about in week 3 what it means to own our interpretations, what it means to own our narrative. What story are you living? That's the power of stereotypes too, right? A stereotype is a narrative given across a general population. And once that narrative is believed in enough, there becomes a pressure to conform to the narrative. Because now we're talking about, in a way, the power of shouldn't be. You shouldn't be this. You should be that. None of us really see the potential that lies in us, that undying, unlimited potential, until we allow ourselves to let go of should be, who you should be. Well, you should be. Let it go. Right now, let it go. Let go. Right now. Not for another moment will you let that dominate your life. What someone else told you you should be. And by the way, the person who told you you should be is purely projecting their own should be on your should be. So we're no longer even living what we should be. We're living what someone else thinks they should be, but weren't. So it's a never-ending cycle of shame and defeat where we are constantly living to standards of some grandparent somewhere that simply was unable to find a self-esteem and self-love worth giving to themselves. And that's where generational cycles start. That's where generational curses start. when we constantly pass down our should be's. Should be. You should be successful. You should go to college. You should be beautiful. You should be this by the time you're 30. You should have it all made by the time you're 40. You should have a wife, a family, the house with the white picket fence. What is the American dream? It is an idol. What is a should be? A should be is a god. What you think you should be is a god we worship, and that is the American dream. It's evolved over the ages, but remember what it started as: the house with the white picket fence and the dog and the two kids and the family. And meanwhile, we found out how much harmony existed in a lot of those dreams, didn't we? That just because it looks the part doesn't mean it embodies the part. You can be the written word and not be the living word. You can use all the right phrases and speak with the right language, but language can be a great cover. That's why the greatest tricksters are great talkers. Because I can talk you into believing that I am that which I do not embody. We can use words to hide. Words like God, words like working on myself, words like I always try to do the right thing, words like I gotta do what I gotta do. Words like, I'm just trying to feed my family. Words like, I love you. Words like, this is a safe place. Words like, are you awake? Words like, I'm an ally. Words like, I hear you. We can hide behind words. And we've all seen and done that. I've done it many times. I told you, remember the vulnerable guy. The guy who says, I'm just here to be vulnerable. That's the most convenient mask for a great liar. I'm just being authentic. I'm just really trying to be as honest as I possibly can be. It's one thing to say it, and it's another thing to integrate it. It's one thing to talk about it, it's another thing to embody it. It's one thing to write it, and it's another thing to live it. And that is one great distinction between what much of organized religion is and what true religion is. Because religion is not bad, inherently. Belief is not bad. Faith is not bad. No, are you kidding? Faith, no, don't get me started. But it's when we talk about things we don't truly believe. It's when we write things we don't truly embody. And then we make those written codes and tell everyone that that's what you should be when none of us really are. Which is the birthplace of hypocrisy. And that's when it gets sick. That's when it gets real sick. Whoa. Wasn't I going to tell you a story? Yo, I'm trying to get a story out here. There I was, my wife and I, seated at a campfire outside our 22-foot silver bullet. I don't know why I call it a silver bullet. It just kind of looks like a silver bullet. Airstream, right? We've been living in it for about 3 months this time. And I'm so paranoid. Because we're doing it at the time. I don't know if you remember this, but there were these RV murders, gruesome, that kept happening. There were a few that happened right around each other. And they were at campgrounds very close to where actually, one of the most famous murders happened at a campground a week before Tay and I had planned on being there. So we switched our course and we ended up going southwest instead of northwest. Because they hadn't figured out who the killer was yet. But I'm so paranoid about these RV killers, and there's a lot of wildlife. I didn't grow up around mountain lions and moose and grizzly. I didn't grow up around that type of wildlife. I'm so on guard. We're sitting out at the campfire, and I remember I noticed how tense my shoulders were. They were so stiff, man. It was fascinating because I heard this question come to me. The question was, when's the last time you felt safe? And the question hit me so hard. Because in the moment I started searching for my last memory of safety, I recognized I don't know if I know what complete safety feels like. Completely safe? I don't know if I know that. And the voice said, take 15 seconds and give yourself permission. Listen, guys, key word here, permission to feel completely safe. And it sounds a little bit insane because I felt a bit terrified at the risk of that. Well, what happens if I allow myself to feel safe and then I get mauled by a raging axeman? No, seriously, I know it sounds irrational, but this is genuinely where I was at. This is also the guy who tried to raise his brother from the dead. I mean, at this point, these types of stories are not going to sound. This is just what it is. It's like this is my normal, or especially this was my normal. This level of paranoia. Well, what if my wife and I get slain by an axeman hiding behind my trailer right now? Or what if I get mauled by a mountain lion? But it says something. I don't say this lightly. This moment carried so much weight in perhaps being the greatest pivot point I've ever taken as far as a real mental reframe has taken me. So I took a deep breath. Okay, all right. 15 seconds, all right, okay. And I gave myself a little countdown. In 5 seconds, I am going to give myself permission to feel completely safe. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And tears streamed down my eyes. Because for the first time, I felt true security. Because I gave myself permission to feel it. As a pastor, I used to tell my church the entire time. I have to admit, in some ways, part of the foundation of my church was the fear of creating church hurt. I was terrified of it. So many people get hurt by religion. And I just don't want to be another place where people leave and they say, yeah, well, I went to this place and so I would tell my church, and it wasn't even just something I told them. It was something that I really sought to embody, that we just want to build a safe place. But here's what your boy did not know. You can create the most padded environment in the world. You can create the safest guidelines. Pad the room as much as you possibly can. But if people don't know how to interpret safety by giving themselves permission to believe they are fully safe. It doesn't matter how much you pad it. It doesn't matter the environment. You could be in the safest space in the world and feel so full of danger in your body that you live in a perpetual panic. That's why I call this the next step in human evolution. It is what I would call active safety. It's an evolutionary survival mechanism for humans to fear the unknown. And when we operate in a state of fear, our body goes into fight or flight. The sympathetic nervous system is activated. With that, adrenaline starts pumping, and you're evaluating the world based purely upon what gives me the greatest chance to survive, right? But for humans to thrive, we have to go beyond survival. We have to go beyond fight or flight. We have to go beyond the sympathetic. Because now, part of what we're seeing in our research is that our nervous systems, when we go into fight or flight, where that may have helped when you're running from a saber-toothed tiger, but now your nervous system does not know the difference between running from a saber-toothed tiger and not knowing whether or not your bills are paid, or not knowing whether or not your rent's going to go up another $400 this year. Or active safety is the ability to create safety from within. It does not rely on safety from without, and which is why I say it's about going beyond survival and going into thriving. That point forward in the Rio Grande, this was the main part of my practice for about 4 or 5 years. It's about practicing safety. Because what are most of us looking for? Why is money so appealing to most of us? What is it that we're looking for? What are we talking about? Security. What do we mean when we say security? Safety. What do we mean by safety? The ability to be certain we're gonna be okay. Certainty. This is where faith flips certainty on its head. Because now certainty is no longer in the hands of what external circumstance happens to me, but now security is in my own hands. It's a peace that passes all understanding, meaning I'm able to access this peace even if all hell breaks loose around me. It's a peace and a safety that I'm able to access even if all chaos is erupting in my environment. I can remain unshakable. And this is where we start talking about the ability to shift environments. Because there's no real room to explore unless there is a real baseline of security. But we don't find that baseline of security until we learn to practice it ourselves. And how do you begin to practice it for yourself? By giving yourself permission to feel completely safe. Why do I say permission? Because most of what we do in this life is based on permission. Most of us want to get rich. When we want to get rich, it's because we want permission to exhale. We want permission to relax. We want permission to feel secure. But the thing is, we take all of these external, we create these hills for us to run over in order to be happy. In order to give myself permission to be happy, I just have to accomplish this and gain this accolade and this accolade and this accolade. And then I can feel permission to what? Feel how I want to feel happy, to feel fulfilled. But we don't give ourselves permission to feel these things until we run over this or dominate that or conquer this. But the key, you can access the feeling before you run over the hill. It's as if you conquered the hill already. So if I'm able to access a state of safety, I can hear people though saying, well, you're just giving people a sense of false security. Well, so and my question to you would be, what is real security then? You tell me. Seriously, outline what is clear security. Drop it below in the comments. Drop it below. What is security from an external standpoint? What does the situation have to look like? Tell me, what's the number? How much do I need in my bank account? And I need to own. And what do I need relationally? And I don't think anyone can draw that picture clearly, and all of us can agree on that. Well, you need 2 million in the bank. What's that movie? What's that movie with John? The gambling movie from Righteous Gemstones. Makes a really big jump. I understand this. Jamie, are you saying if I create a sense of safety within, safety will automatically reflect outwardly? Here's the animal example. Why do we say that animals can smell fear? The animal mind works in two categories, threat and non-threat. Danger and secure. Which is why in many ways you could say that animals live in a greater state of peace than a human. Because animals are much better at equating what is a threat and what is not a threat. At least animals that don't grow up in a perpetual state of abuse. But that's part of the reason why an abused animal is always in a perpetual state of constant, minorly perceived threat. Here's the question. Are our inward lives and our outward lives connected? Let's start there. The external reflect the internal. Fascinating verse in John where he says, "Beloved, I pray that you may prosper and be in health even as your soul prospers." In other words, your external will never prosper beyond your internal. Your external prosperity is limited to your internal prosperity. Meaning they do reflect. As above, so below. So when it comes to changing our external, it doesn't begin with trying to manipulate the external. It begins by going internal. It begins by recognizing what I see out here is a projection of what's happening in here. So I don't need to change anything out here. I only need to change what happens in here. That's why the main thing Jesus is telling people throughout his entire teaching is repent. In Greek, metanaous, meaning change your mind. Change the inward. Change the internal. Don't want to experience something externally. I have to experience it internally. So when it comes to safety and security, I understand that it sounds like I'm saying something very grandiose or even taking a risk. It's sounding too good to be true. We are the most volatile when we feel threatened. When I'm not in a state of safety. Even take conflict. Let's take conflict down to a very micro level. Let's say you come to me and your voice is raised. I don't necessarily have to perceive threat yet. Even your body language, you're pointing at me, you're giving very aggressive body language. I can either choose in this moment to perceive a threat, or I could take this in a whole nother way, which is why I'm into the business of peacemaking. I'm into the vocation of peacemaking. When I talk about my work as crisis support, my offer is peacemaking. When it comes to the ability to make peace, a soft answer turns away wrath. So any art or science of de-escalation is when someone goes high, you go low. The higher they come at you, the lower you go. The more you relax. I've told this story a few times. I was supporting a guy who would enter these manic states that were so heightened. And he jumps out of my car, pretty busy road, and he's yelling, screaming, and he's running down the street, and people are looking around us because he's so escalated. And in this moment, I have a choice. I'm sitting in the car and I'm watching him take off down the street. I can either perceive a threat, or I can give myself permission to feel safe. And this is when we talk about something, and I know maybe there's a chance I lose some people here, but this is when we talk about spiritual authority, quantum authority. It's the space between people. It's the power of narratives. And I take a moment, he's running down the street screaming, and there's all these thoughts. Of course they come. What if he hurts somebody? What if somebody hurts him? What if he gets hit by a car? Am I liable? Am I in that moment? Let the safety in. I even give it an extra second. Slow. I slowly open the door. Now he's running back towards me. It's like a movie. And I just slowly step out onto the sidewalk. I'm feeling that safety. I just feel it. I've let it in. I perceive no threats in this moment, even though I could. And he's running at me. He's sprinting. Dead sprint, but with his arms above his head, like he's one of those like he's one of those noodle things at gas stations. And sprints up to me, and I just relaxed. I'm relaxed, slow. And he gets right into my face. I mean, he's nose to nose. People are wondering, are they gonna kiss or like what? Like, there's a crowd of people. There's people on the other side of the sidewalk, other side of the road, people that he has nearly run them into the grass. Like, I'm pretty sure a few ladies screamed. Of course. There's always a lady screaming. For no reason. You're on the other side of the road, man. Runs straight up to my face and he just goes, "Ah!" Full blast. But I was so full of this feeling, man. I was so full of it. I was almost high on it. And I just took a breath. And I said his name. And I said, "Brother, slow." I wish you could have seen it. Because you watched, it was like his shoulders dropped. Everything just dropped. So was I actually safe, or was the safety created? Was the safety interpreted and therefore experienced? Could I have created a threat? What if I said, "Ah!" back at him? Shut up, kid. That'd be against my work. I wouldn't do that. Bro, calm down. Bro, seriously, I need you to calm down, man. Like, dude, you got people on the side of the street. I don't want the cops to get caught, man. Like, dude, I'm just saying, like, brother, please just calm down. Like, my job, I'm liable. Like, slow. I understand there are a lot of points that maybe you're like, it sounds a little bit woo-woo. It sounds a little bit weird, brother. I gotta be honest. Here's all I'll say. Humor me and try it. Just please, bro, please. Please try twice a day for 15 seconds and tell me about your experience. I'll run through it with you right now, and I'll attach it in the Substack connected with this. But right now, what I want you to do is just take a deep breath with me. Whether you're driving, whatever it is you're doing right now. In 5 seconds, on the count of 5, I want you to give yourself permission, even if you've never felt this feeling before, brother, even if you've never felt it before, to feel completely safe. Give yourself permission to believe that you're fully safe. For 15 seconds, okay? Just 15 seconds. And then we'll stop. No need to even close your eyes, but wherever you are, in 5 seconds, take a deep breath in and fully let the safety in. Ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let it fully in. I understand for some of us that can be the first time we ever feel that feeling. And I'm here with you. I'm here with you. You're safe. You're safe. I know. No, we grieve all those years. I know. That we've lived just purely trying to survive. Oh, but this is the baseline of thriving. My brother, my sister, you were meant to thrive. This whole life is not just about not dying, it's about living. Let's not spend our entire lives just trying not to die so much to the point where we never actually end up living. Live so much to the point where even if we did die, at least we died knowing we have lived. And we did thrive while we were here. But this is the baseline for all creative thinking. This is the baseline of creativity, of originality. It starts right here. I debated whether to do our last episode before this. I debated which one to do first, and part of me thinks even if you've already listened to last week on how to listen, maybe listen to it again after listening to this. Because I can't truly listen to you unless I feel safe enough to fully focus on you without having to put my guard up. Most of us don't listen because we always have our guards up. We're always on the defensive. But the thing is, once we're able to create a security, now we're no longer coming from a protective place. This is the first step in human offensive creativity. This means that humans are no longer building what we're building from a defensive posture. Now humanity becomes offensive, but we don't become offensive or intentional until we're able to create a sense of safety within ourselves. That's why I'm so passionate about this being the next stage of human evolution. It's the baseline. To be able to create security from within yourself. Again, I understand anyone who's like, bruh, just tell stories. Like, don't, this is kind of woo-woo, I gotta be honest. No, this is it. I'm confident in this. And I want to create a dialogue more and more on this, but with every kind of work I do, this is what I'm pushing. I'm pushing this. Because it puts power in the hands of the people. And if it puts power in the hands of the people, then the Your Brother Jamie podcast is going to talk about it. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. Yo, that was episode 5. That was a wild one. That was wild, guys. That was woo! I'm about to go get a workout in. I have an update. I got a little announcement I got to make. So, the Your Brother Jamie podcast is going to be releasing a new feature. Yeah. And I've debated for a very long time. I will always, you have my word. And if I don't come through on this, you have the right to check me. I will make as much content as I possibly can free. Something I'm very serious on. That I will do as much as I possibly can to make everything I make as free as possible. Kept it that way for a very long time. All of my content has been the same for paid subscribers and free subscribers. For both, everyone who subscribes to my work, I really mean it. I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful that you would take the time to invest your time or money into reading what I share, listening to what I share. Thank you. Sincerely. As of recently, I don't know if there's probably a select few of listeners to this show who have followed me long enough to remember when I had a daily show that I kept for like 2 years. And dailies, they were really short, maybe 8 to 25 minutes. But you know me, I can talk. I love to talk. Found that is kind of my flow. I think that my friends and I do all the time. We send voice memos to each other almost daily. A lot of my relationships right now are people around the world. We talk most through voice memos. Ironically, that was what my brother Savant, how he communicated the most before he passed. Dude who basically we based this entire show on. And I used to diss him so much for his voice memos. Like, bro, no one's going to be listening to that. Like, what, you're going to make me sit here for 11 minutes and listen to your voice memo where you talk about nothing. But it's crazy. It's sweet because me and my friends, it's primarily how we communicate is through voice memos. And so I wanted to incorporate that into this community because it's essential. I want to create a Notes from Your Brother feature where it would be only open to paid subscribers. I do want to incentivize those who do pay. I'll be releasing 1 to 3 voice memos a week, just on stuff that I'm processing throughout the week, because only releasing one thing a week, I have so much more that we could talk about, but this podcast will go for like 3 or 4 hours. So in order to supplement that, if that is something that you'd like to participate with, subscribe to me on Substack, become a paid subscriber, and with notes. I'm excited to launch Notes from Your Brother. I'll be releasing on the 20th. If you want to communicate with me, reach out for crisis support, peacemaking. Peacemaking. Sometimes I'm hired out in my work to come in and help families who... The hardest place oftentimes for us to experience peace is relationally. So sometimes in crisis support, I'm hired to come in as a mediator with that process, because I am very passionate about familial reconciliation and conflict in family, separation within family. It's those silent killers. It's those silent pains that can live with us through our days. And if that's something you're interested in, as well as mentorship across the spectrum, out to me on Substack. And you'll find an email attached. Anyway, guys, episode 5. That was a doozy, baby. Thank you so much for listening. I love you so much. We are a people who create security from within ourselves. I believe in you. Power to the people. All my love to you. I'm your brother.